Evening all, how are we all doing? Everybody well? Nice to see 125 people here already, that's really cool. So thank you very much for joining in. I hope you've had a good couple of weeks since the last live demo. It's been crazy busy here, as I'm sure you can imagine. Right, yes, it's nearly 7:10, so we're going to run through the normal thing. I'm going to finish getting ready. You guys are going to chat amongst yourselves for a little bit, and then we'll crack on at about 7:30. I've got an interesting little project lined up for tonight. I hope you're going to enjoy. So yeah, I just need to change my audio settings a little bit because I'm getting a little bit of feedback in my ear. Not well, through the speaker anyway. Hi everybody. Do. Let's just turn that off, or turn it right down. That'll do. Right, who have we got in the house? We've got Mark Pritchard, David Goodwin, good evening. Waffle and Wood, Julia Hammond. Hi, Julia. Tony P, Matt Held in the US. Hi, Matt. Andy Harris. Lauren Becker. Hi, Lauren. Carol Baxter. Hi, Carol. Ah, splendid. Nice to see some new names as well as the usual crowd, the usual suspects. Good evening, Phil. Right, that's that. Going to need that in a little while. Do. Yeah, that'll do. Splendid. Jaffa cakes. Yes, Jaffa cakes. Scott, I hope you're liking your Jaffa cakes. Where did I put my coffee? Waffle and wood. Are those sparkly new handles or just clean? No, they're just clean, and I've got the camera set up properly this evening. Waffle and wood. Hi Jennifer. Hi Vicky. Graham Harris, any tips for beginners? Oh, there's tips in all of my live streams and videos, Graham Harris. It's just a case of sifting through them and finding them. Matthias in Switzerland, hi. Silk in Basingstoke, hello. Hi Alison. Steve Mitchell, Steve Robbins. Oh, a few Steves in this evening. Sleeping Dog, that's a new name. I don't know that one before. Hi Sleeping Dog, very welcome. Andrew in Fareham, hi Andrew. Ron Kisco, hi Ron. I'm looking forward to this as well, Adam. I haven't done an inlay video for ever, I think. Maybe I've done a little one a little while ago, I can't remember. I've certainly not done one live before. Hi Paul Howard. Well, I do need to go through and finish setting up the rest of the cameras as well. Morning Don Mitchell. Matt in Michigan, hi Matt. What am I doing? I'm doing this and this and that. Right, so I'm just going to have a little play around with some of the cameras. Just so you can get the best possible view. Martin in Germany, hiya. That's gentle turn. Oh, that one. Well, let's just check the overhead. Just get that nice and squared up for you. Is that camera plugged in? Yes. Oh, there's a spider's web in the way. Let's just wave that out of the way. This is fun. Oh, there we go. Right, let's just got rid of that. And then that one. Not that I think we'll be needing this one this evening, but it's there anyway, just in case we need it. Oh, Sleeping Dog's been lurking for a while. Oh, fair enough. Well, it's nice to see that you're speaking up. Sleeping Dog. Ah, Scott Tornado. Aha. Nice to see you, Scott. Mark Pritchard. Well, that's very kind of you to say so, Mark. Thank you very much. Old Faithful. Why has somebody already marked a dislike thumbs down? I don't know, Old Faithful. It's one of those things. There's absolutely 0 point in putting a thumbs down on a video. None whatsoever, in my opinion. I couldn't care less. It's just bonkers. Haven't even started yet and somebody doesn't like it. That could be a point, actually, because I have a half an hour span before actually sort of getting started to allow more people to arrive and have a bit of a chat before things get going. Some people don't like that, so that's entirely up to them. Sunny Yorkshire. Anthony Southwell. Hi Anthony, nice to see you, and thank you very much indeed as well. That's very kind of you, and I haven't even started. James Simcox, second time viewer in Leicester. Hi James, how are you doing? Ba, ba, ba. Darren Spurgeon. Hi Darren, haven't seen you for a while. Oh, I better sharpen my spindle roughing gouge. Ba, 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 ba. Specs on. Oh, it would help if I get the table at the right angle, wouldn't it? I think it's that one. Yeah. Ba ba da ba da. Right, that's the spindle roughing gouge sharpened. Hi Wayne. Oh, filthy glasses. Stuart in Guernsey. Hi Stuart. Door 60. Hi Door 60. That's a new name to me. I don't recognise your name, Door 60. Dave Shorten. Will tonight's demo be using the black and white marble effect kits you sell? Do I sell any black and white marble effect kits, Dave? Unless you mean the black and white sand, yes it will be. I'll be doing both. Ba ba da ba da. Wooden Touch in Calgary. Hi. I can't get my glasses with this headset. I can't get my glasses comfortable. Oh well, they're on anyway. Dee 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 dee. Dave Bamford. Hello. Steve Jeremiah. That's very kind of you, Steve. I'm not as young as I look. And I've had a haircut. My wife thinks I look even younger. See? Although with the amount of hair I'm actually losing, you can't say I'm very young. Ultan. Has anyone here turned cottonista? No idea what that is. Alan Smith. Hi Alan. Hi Thomas. Steve Ash, you're new too. Are you? Colin French. Hi Colin and Val, nice to see you. Ba, 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 ba. Cool. Yeah, we're looking alright for tonight, I think. Just need to fix the focus on this. Graham, what's the conical chuck on the wall? Oh, Graham, this one here. This one here, this is just a sort of a standard chuck, but it's got O'Donnell jaws on it. So it's for turning obviously quite small pieces, and they're conical like that to keep your fingers and your knuckles away from the actual chuck and the carriages and stuff. So really helpful. PL Woodturning, love the lacquer. That's great to know, PL. Thank you very much. Lots of comments coming in. I can't keep up with all the comments. Right, so we've got about 10 minutes before we get going. Hi, Karen. What I will say to everybody before we get started is that this is obviously a demonstration, but if anybody wants to try any of the products that I'm using tonight, you can. Make a very quick note of that discount code number. I will be putting it up again at the end of the demonstration. But before we get going, and just for all of you early birds, in case you need to go before the end, make a note of that, and you can get 10% off the products that I'm using tonight in the demo. So I'll leave that up just for a couple of minutes before that goes off. And that voucher code expires tomorrow night. So you've got just over 24 hours to have a bash at it. Is it me, or is there 3 people in here tonight called Shay? Rob CP, how long does it take the intrinsic colours to dry? That's an interesting question. It depends on the ambient temperature and the ambient humidity. So it could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes. It could be half an hour, depending upon how warm, cold, or humid it is. Which is why I always, or 99% of the time at least, use a hot air gun to dry the colours off, or use a piece of paper towel to just get it warm to dry them off. Paul, which insurance company do you use for your workshop? Paul, I use a company called Nature Save, and they are down in Torquay, I believe. Cool, 196 people, that's awesome. 8 minutes and we'll get started. So I'm going to take that voucher code off there now. I will put it back up again at the end of the demonstration, so long as so long as everything goes well with it. Oh, there are 2 Shays. Touches. Ha ha ha, touche. Sorry. Bad joke. Need more caffeine. Lauren, yes. In answer to Lauren's question about shipping to the US, I can ship to the US. It's not particularly cheap, and you'll only be able to order stuff that isn't classed as dangerous goods. So the finishes, the oil, the sealer, the lacquer and stuff, unfortunately it's just not feasible to ship because it will just cost a ridiculous amount of money. Other than that, yes, I can ship, but the site should be able to tell you everything. This is a rather good cup of coffee, I must say. I've done well with that one. Oh, did I miss the touche joke? Oh well, never mind. Oh, okay, Stuart, yeah. I thought it was quite good. I mean, it must be good if more than one person thought of it. Right, about 6 minutes and we'll get going. Looking forward to this. Should be good. I've got an interesting thing running around my head as to what we can do, but we'll see. Because as usual, it's largely completely unplanned. Washington State. Hi, Mike. Darren, you can click and collect. It is sort of new, yes, Darren. Oh, hi Rachel French. Nice to see you. And you too, Colin, of course. Yeah, Darren, click and collect. It is kind of new. Yeah, Colin. Yeah, Colin French. In the US, you can get Hampshire Sheen stuff from the Walnut Log in Missouri and Woodworld of Texas in Texas, and in Canada you can get the stuff from a nice chap called Rob Summerlin at woodsley-summercraft.ca. And if any of your local suppliers don't stock the products that I'm using tonight, give them a kick and tell them you want it, and then hopefully they should order it next time for you. 5 minutes. T-minus 5 minutes and then we're off. Ultan Moore, how do you go about becoming a registered professional turner? Ultan, depends where you are. It's largely, well, it is really only at the moment at least for UK turners. You need to have 2 referees who are also who are already registered professional turners. So you need 2 referees, and you need insurance certificates and everything else like that. And you need to send in pictures of your work. And then if you get to that stage, the register will then organise to have an assessment where one of the RPT members will come along and give you an interview and an assessment, have a look around your workshop, watch you turning, that kind of thing, and then it'll all come back to the sort of the membership committee, where they will discuss your membership and see if you will be accepted. Easy peasy. My interview was 2.5 hours. Yeah, 2.5 hours. Darren Spurgeon, is it close to Basingstoke? Well, am I close to Basingstoke? I'm about half an hour drive away, roughly, near in the little village called Fourmarks, not far from Alton. Right, 3 minutes. I'm going to nip off for a very swift comfort break, and I will be back then, and we will get started with this evening's demonstration. So I will see you. Oh, hang on a minute. Let's find the right buttons. Ah, there we are. Right, yeah, I will see you shortly, everybody. Right, back again. I hope you managed to go and grab yourselves another beer, cup of coffee, bottle of wine, or whatever during that short little break there. Right, yes, so this evening, welcome along everybody. 253 people here, which is fantastic. Very, very warm welcome to everybody, wherever you are in the UK or wherever you are around the world. This evening we're going to be looking at doing some inlays. Not particularly complicated because of the time and stuff that we have, but if we just take a little look at this piece here, you should be able to see that quite nice and clearly. That's this is some decorative sand, and we're going to be turning a piece with a band like this one, but I think we'll probably flank the band on either side with some metal powders, just to flank that, just to add a little bit of additional interest to that. Now please bear in mind that whilst we do these demonstrations, I can't hear what's going on, and I can't always read all of the comments. So I will be stopping regularly to take questions, so please hold on to your questions until I ask specifically for them, and when we stop I'll answer as many as I possibly can. I don't work with an earworm like some of the other guys do. I personally find it a smidge distracting, so please bear with me and ask questions when I specifically say, anybody got any questions? And is there anything else? Oh yeah, be nice to each other. There we go, be nice to each other. It's a lovely evening here in Hampshire. The sun is beginning to set, it's still nice and warm, hence why I'm in a t-shirt, and I have probably had too much caffeine this evening. Right, let's get going. So on the lathe this evening, what we've got is this is just a little piece of sycamore. I do love sycamore, if you didn't already know that. So we've got a piece of sycamore, and just to give you the dimensions, of course I haven't got a ruler to hand, or a rule, there we go. Anyway, it is just a touch over 6 inches long, which in English is about 160 millimeters by 3 inches, which is pretty much 77 mil, something like 77 mil. And I think what we'll do is we'll do just a very simple, perhaps a lidded pot with a pretty simple shape that just dives in kind of round that kind of shape with perhaps a domed lid on the top, something like that. I think you can see that okay. Yeah, something like that. That's not bad for me, because I certainly can't I certainly don't call myself an artist, or well, certainly somebody who can draw, but that has actually turned out quite well. There we are. Looks a little bit like an ice cream. Yeah, cool, that's what we'll do. Right, so the first job is to get it round, obviously, and we then need to put a tenon on one end. So for those of you who have watched before, you'll know what's coming next. Get the tool rest to the height that when the tool is I can't even say it now. I say it so often I can't even get it right. So the tool rest needs to be at a height that when the tool is presented to the work, it is cutting right on or a tiny little bit below the center line. Make sure you are wearing your PPE. I'm going to switch over to a face shield just for the beginning of this. Oh, and get a little wood shaving in my eye. Right, there we go. Overhead, right. So we've got this mounted between centres with a live centre over here. No, drive centre over on this side and a live centre on the tailstock. Just get that tool rest down a tiny little bit more, and I'm just going to make sure that it's parallel to the lathe bed. Start the lathe nice and slow. Check that everything is down and locked into position. That's really important. Get a little bit of speed running into the lathe. Now this is quite a large spindle roughing gouge. It doesn't make me a better turner. Doesn't really take much bigger chips, to be honest. But I just find it slightly easier to use than the standard size tools. Whoop. Now I'm not rushing this, there's no need to rush. I'm just going to stop the lathe there for a minute, move the tool rest in a smidge, and just raise it up a little bit because it's a little bit smaller than it was now. Oops, took the tool rest up a little bit too high, there we go. Let's do that again. Couple more passes and I think we'll be alright. Yeah, that's better. Look, you can see those shavings are coming off nice and long now. And we should be round. Let's have a look. Yeah, look at that. Beautiful piece of wood. Now I'm going to be using Axminster gripper jaws to hold this, and they are the H gripper jaws if anybody's interested. Bring the tool rest up, and then I can use Les Thorne's round skew just to tidy the end up. Get a little bit more speed into the lathe there, I think. Just tidy that up there. Just double check my calipers are set to the correct width, which they are. And now the gripper jaws only require a square tenon, so when you're putting your tenon on your work, make sure you turn the correct tenon or the correct kind of tenon for your jaws. There we are, that'll do. Let's make it a little bit longer. There we go. There, nice tenon on the end. Right, now we can mount that. Oh. Ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Let's take the drive centre out and mount the chuck on the spindle. And it should be the right size. Yeah, there we go, look at that. Super. Teeny tiny little wobble, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. And slide this tailstock up as well, because I need to put a tenon on this end as well. Now I'm going to put exactly the same tenon on, or exactly the same size tenon on this end. There's a little bit of a wobble on the end here because it wasn't cut completely square, so I'll just tidy the end up. If I zoom in there a tiny little bit more, whoop, come on, there we go. So I'm going to start with the handle down, as you can see, and then I'm just going to lift the handle up and then just check it with the calipers. Oh, almost went too far there, so I'll just make that one a little bit longer. like so. There we go. Okay, right, come back to my glasses now. Okay, goody good. Right, what are we going to do with this? Okay, I said we're going to do some kind of very, very, very simple lidded box. So that's what I'm going to stick to, and I need a little parting tool for this and a pencil. So let's just look at the overhead camera again. Just going to work some things out here, bearing in mind that one of these ends is going to be the lid, and I'll probably do the lid on this end. I need to have a think about what sort of lid I want to do. I'm not overly worried because I just want the piece to be really, really simple. It doesn't have to be particularly complicated. So let's do a lid. Let's do a lid about there, and then the bottom of our little boxy pot thing about there. That's it. So remember the diagram that we drew earlier? There was sort of a rounded liddy bit sort of there, and then this bit kind of dived in a little bit like that. That's roughly what we're going to do. So the end of the pot's going to be about here, something like that, maybe a little bit longer. There you go. We'll do it there. This one here. So then all of this back here is going to be a waste block, and also really helpful for when I begin to turn this bit down, or to turn the walls of the pot down into here. This waste block just helps to keep my hands and my knuckles and stuff away from the chuck. So, right, first things first, I'm going to part the lid off, and I'm going to do most of the parting off with the tailstock in position, and then remove it right at the end. We don't need to be going at 1,000,000 miles an hour with a parting tool, but I'm going to go right across the pencil line. Take the tailstock out of the way. Slow the lathe down a little bit. I can't find the end. Where is it? Where are you? There we are. There we go, that's found that. Okay, right, so there's what's going to be our lid, and then this bit here is going to be our box. Right, sorry for the pause there. I'm just wondering if there are some people that can't see the stream. I'm assuming the stream is going out okay, because a couple of people... Oh, well, I'm just wondering now if Mike's... Sorry, if Mike Walt's screen has frozen. Oh, everybody say welcome back to Mike Walt, who had the live pause on the video. Hi, Mike. Okay, right, whilst we were just faffing around there. I've just parted that off. Going to have a very quick mouthful of coffee. Oh, good. Right, I'm glad you can see it, and I'm not just standing here talking to myself. Okay, right. So yes, it is just Mike being Mike. Right. Now, so I think I'm just going to do a very, very simple slip fit on the lid. Pencil. So I'm going to cut a little shoulder on Cut a little shoulder on here, about there. Cut a little shoulder there, and then we'll cut a suitable recess on the lid over here, so the lid will just slip on later. So let's do that. But before we do that, I'm going to make a nice cleaning cut across the face of the piece with a spindle gouge. Going to clean this off nicely. I don't really need to worry about the middle of this too much. It's just the outside. A little bit of speed running in there. Oh, tool rest is a smidge low for that. There we are. Let's just take another one of those. There. That's nice. That to me, I think is one of the most satisfying cuts in wood turning. I absolutely love that cut. Now, just come back to the overhead. Let's just bring that down a little bit. Hang on, excuse me. There's my feet. I'll just correct the focus on that for you, because that, I think, is where I want most of the what do you call it? Don't know what I'm saying. I think that's where I want most of the camera angles this evening, is right over the top. So I'm just going to correct the focus for that. Focus. There we go. About there. Good. Right, so excuse me for that. So you've got a nice sharp focus there now, which is good. Now I'm going to cut a shoulder. I'm going to cut a shoulder on here for the top of the box. I'm really not going to worry too much about how big it is or anything like that. So that looks nice. And then I'm going to just slide the tailstock back up for a minute, because I want to start cutting the box. Switch to a smaller tool rest. And then hit it with a bowl gouge. I'm not going to be going all the way in, I just want to start to make the shape. So I've got a 3/8 bowl gouge here, just run down there. You can see that it's tapering in. See if we can get that a little bit more rounded. You can see now why we've got quite a large waste block over there. There we go, that'll do. So you can see a very rough shape there now. Whilst I was making that cut, I was making sure that I had a little bit of bevel contact all the way down, so we've got a super smooth surface that won't need a huge amount of sanding when we're done. Right, now we can start thinking about the inside. And I'm just going to adjust the tool rest cam. I'll zoom that in a little bit. Oop. A little bit more. Yeah, there we go. That'll do. Oops, get it in the right place. There we are. Splendid. Right, there's a couple of things we can do here, because we're going to hollow this out a little bit. I could use a spindle gouge. I could use a drill. I know Mike likes to do his. I know Mike likes to drill the depth, but I don't. But there are lots of ways you can do it. You can do it with a spindle gouge. You can do it with a carbide tool. In fact, I will be using a carbide tool to do a bit of that, plus a scraper. But to kick it off, we're going to use a spindle gouge. Oop. Oh, sorry, just looking at the side of my head. That's the one we want. So the tool rest again is at a height that when the tool's presented to the work, it's at the right height. Let's get that all round there. So I'll use a couple of different tools to get this done. The noise you're hearing there as I'm back hollowing is completely normal. And I'm beginning to run out of length of the on the spindle gouge, so I'll be swapping to a carbide in a minute. Let's just get the tool rest up to the right height. Clear those bits out. Oh, let's get the tool rest up to the right height. Right, so for this carbide, which is Simon Hope's little 6mm carbide cutter, which we'll also be using a little bit later with the inlay, I've got the tool rest above centre, and I'm actually tipping the tool down ever so slightly down to the bottom. So the tool rest is, the handle is above centre. Oh, it's just come undone. Let me just do that up. I changed the tip a little while ago. Thank you, Matt Held. Just changed the tip a little while ago, and it's just shaking itself loose. So I'm just going to tighten that up. There we are. Right, here we go again. Now, one thing I do is, oh, you can't see it particularly well, but where you've got the two little locking bolts here, these are pointing straight up when the actual carbide tip is pointing straight up. So when you're quite a long way down inside the piece and you've got shavings and stuff flying around in there, you can't really see the angle that the tip's in, or that the tip's at. So by having oh no, you can't quite see. Yeah, so by having the little locking nuts here pointing up when the carbide tip is pointing up, it gives you a really good reference right outside the piece as to the orientation of the tip. There you go. Right, let's get back in there. I don't want to go too far down here because this isn't a demonstration on hollowing. I will go a little bit deeper though. Just got to get the angle right. And you can't really see, oh yes you can if I just switch cameras to that one and keep myself out of the way. You should be able to see just over my right ear exactly what I'm doing. There we are. Right, so that's got the bulk of that out. But as you can see there, which is fairly standard when using a scraping tool like that, the inside is a little bit rough. But I'm going to use a high-speed steel scraper now. Get plenty of speed into the lathe and use it almost like a negative rake scraper, so the handle is above the centre line or is above parallel to the bed. The lathe's running at 1700 RPM. And the tool rest is a little bit on the low side, so I'm going to stop the lathe and just bring the tool rest up a little bit. Now let's try and get that little dimple out the bottom. I think again if I just switch to the long view you can see right over my hands there. Going to get the tool rest in a little bit closer now because we're quite a long, the tool itself is hanging quite a long way over the rest. There we go, and you should still be able to see. Richard Klingman, thank you very much. That's very generous of you, thank you. So I just want to undercut these walls a little bit. I can't quite see where I'm going. So I've just got to feel my way down. Let's just give you an over-the-shoulder view. Hopefully that will focus. There we go. So you can see where I am. Take that a little bit lower. Really light cuts. Stop the lathe there. Right. Okay, nearly there. I want to go a little bit wider at the bottom here. I'm feeling about here, and I can go a little bit thinner there, just a touch, because I still need to take another little cut down here. So I'll just widen that off a little bit. In fact, if I show you this view, you can see from a different angle. Let's get rid of the little dimple at the bottom. There we go. Nice light touches. You need to remember that when you're using a scraper, you've got a very long cutting edge round here, and if too much of this cutting edge comes in contact with the work at any one time, there's a fairly high chance of a catch. So oddly enough, scrapers need to be used really quite carefully. Okay. Let's just blow the lathe down a little bit and get rid of those shavings. John Foster, if I drilled it out, wouldn't it save you a lot of work? Yes, it would, John. It would save me a lot of work. But you know, I could argue the fact that I'm a wood turner, not a driller. Although, having said that, when I turn these ring boxes, I do drill this hole out here. And also, there's something more satisfying about hollowing it out yourself, don't you think? Right, now I'm going to stop there and say, does anybody have any questions? Fire away now, and then we'll look at doing some inlay. Is that pencil? Yes, it is. Right, yeah, has anybody got any questions? Ask away. Oh, David Buskell's watching. Hi, David. Nice to see you. I hope you're well. Rubber Dub Wood. Do you sharpen your carbide tips, or do you buy a replacement when it dulls? I buy replacements. With the tiny little 6mm ones, I think they'll be a little bit too tricky to sharpen. So with the 6mm ones, I buy replacements. And thank you. I like my hat too. This is my summer weight hat. Oh dear. Right, hang on a minute. Let me just run through here. Do I want to try hook tools? Not at the moment, Martin. I will get onto hook tools at some point. Turning that deep, how hard is it to get to the bottom? Douglas, it's not too difficult to get to the bottom, particularly if you're using a nice, a good quality chunky scraper like this one on a decent length handle too. So you've got more weight, you know, to sort of bear down on. So the deeper you go, I think the chunkier the tool needs to be. Mark Pritchard, what is the most expensive wood you've turned? Probably African blackwood. I've got 2 lengths over there for a project I've been planning for months, and I'm not going to turn them until that project, because they're really quite expensive. Jennifer, what size scraper? Jennifer, this is a Sorby 25mm 1 inch 25mm 1 inch scraper. Old Faithful, is the inlay smooth to the touch? Yes, it is. Frederick, I always have trouble getting rid of the nib or the nub at the bottom. Yeah, that's a tricky bit, and it's really difficult to try and demonstrate because you can't see into the piece. I think let's just go to the long view a minute. You can see that that's actually nice and smooth in there. And what I do is I get the tool kind of about there and just wiggle it up and down a little bit. And rather than swinging the tool that way, I pull the tool across, and then that way you don't dig into the wood next to the centre, if that makes sense. Carol Baxter, with the scraper you have the handle higher. Do you keep the top of the blade part on centre? Yes, Carol. Yeah, so essentially by lifting the handle up above parallel to the bed, you essentially get yourself a little bit of a negative rake scraper. Steve Robbins, how high was the tool rest for the scraper? Steve, good question. I haven't changed the height. Oh yes, I have. So if you can see here on the tool rest view, the tool rest itself is a little bit below centre. Actually, that's not quite right. Sorry, that's almost bang on centre now. It's still not quite right. So now it's above centre. So, and you can see that take it from me, that the cutting edge is right on the centre line, but the handle's coming up, so it's above parallel, so the cutting edge is pointing down, so you essentially get a little bit of a negative rake scraper like that. But it does depend upon how far away or how deep you are actually hollowing. Mark Wallington, what's your technique for sharpening scrapers? Mark, if you go back to my Sorby Pro Edge demonstration, it is on my YouTube channel. You see exactly how I sharpen the scrapers. James, what's the main difference between a spindle and a bowl gouge? Okay, right, James, let me show you. Hang on a minute. Let me find it. Right, bowl gouge, there we go. If we have a look there, I can't remember who asked that question. Oh, where's that question gone? James, right, James, yeah, here is a diagram of a bowl gouge, and you can see at the top diagram here, we've got a round bar. It's quite thick, and this is a 3/8 bowl gouge, so it's on a 1/2 inch bar, and the actual flute itself has been ground out to below the centre line of the gouge. And if we look at a spindle gouge, there we go, there's a spindle gouge. It's a much flatter grind, but also the grind is above the centre point. Sorry, it's above the centre point, or right on the centre point of the diameter. The bowl gouges are on a thicker bar, which means you can essentially take much bigger, stronger cuts with them, and spindle gouges are far more elegant. Let me show you these two. There we go. This one here is a bowl gouge, this one here is a spindle gouge. Very similar, but at the same time very different tools, and definitely designed for doing two different things. When it comes to wood turning tools, the clue is in the name. Bowl gouge, spindle gouge. It's very difficult and almost dangerous to turn a bowl with a spindle gouge, but it's not dangerous to turn a spindle with a bowl gouge. Right. Okay, anybody else with any questions before we start moving on? Ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Anybody? Ivor Longmore, can I use any 10mm HSS bar to make a skew? I'm not a metallurgist. I wouldn't be able to answer that question for you, Ivor, I'm afraid. Sorry. Right, let's start looking at these inlays now, shall we? What I think we'll do, let's just come back to the overhead. Here we go, you should be able to see that now. I think what we'll do is, I said we were going to put a little bit of oops. Oh. Oh, oops. Oh, excuse me a minute. Bear with me a sec. Somebody's just popped in to see me. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Oh, wrong button. Sorry, I'm back. See you later. Sorry. Right. Okay. Let's where was I? Yes. Yes, I said at the beginning we're going to do something a little bit like this piece here. And these are decorative sands in here, a black and a white decorative sand. So we'll put a fairly wide bar, probably about there. About there? No, maybe not. Let's get rid of that. I've just changed my mind. Let's just sand that off. Let's work backwards. No, let's just do it straight there. Right, so I'm going to put a fairly wide bar about there, into which we're going to put the decorative sand, and then about there we'll put some metal powder, and then about there we'll put some metal powder too. How about that? That sounds like a plan to me. So in order to do this, I'm going to utilise a standard parting tool. Standard parting tool. Just move that out there a little bit. And I'm going to put a blade's width there, a blade's width there, and 1, 2, 3 blade widths for the bar in the middle, or the stripe in the middle. So I'll start. Let's get some speed in. I'm not going to worry about too much about the pencil marks. So I'm going to put a blade width in there. Now I'm making it deep enough. I'm making the mark deep enough so it's got a decent depth of in this case the metal powders, in order to form something solid. And then I'm going to leave a blade's width and then do it again. Leave a blade's width. There we are. Okay, right, so that's where all of the various bits and pieces are going to be going. Right, okay, sorry about that. Now I think we'll start off in the middle, but just to help stop the CA glue disappearing right into all of those gaps there, I'm going to throw a little bit of sealer in, just a touch. Doesn't need to be a huge amount at the moment. So I'm just going to run some some sanding sealer in there. Now we're not going to be adding any colour to this piece at all, so I'm not going to worry. There we go, just get that sealer in there. Now notice I haven't cut down here yet. I haven't finished shaping the piece. That's because I'm going to need to cut back the inlays, because we're going to inlay the inlay, or we're going to inlay the powder and the sand, so it's slightly proud of the surface, so we can cut it back to the surface that we want. I hope that makes sense. There we go. And get another little bit of kitchen towel. Just start to help dry that off a little bit. Now this is going to take a few minutes to get these inlays in. There's a lot of space to fill in here. And you probably don't need to go as deep as I have on there. You probably don't need to. Right, I need to find a cup. Excuse me a second, I've got some paper cups over here. Right, here we go. Right, so the products I'm going to be using, here we go, here's a shameless plug. I'm going to be using these, a pure white dolomite sand, which is essentially very finely ground up Italian marble, and black volcanic sand as well. This is a quite a fine grain product too. They're both no more than, the grains are no more than 1 millimeter in diameter or across, and they're really nice to work with. Properly hard, I will hasten to add. And if we just look at here, so they come in essentially spice jars, and they've got a flip top lid, so you can sprinkle from one side and pour from the pour from the other one. So we're going to pour excuse me, sorry. Let's try that again. Yeah, so I'm going to pour some of the white in there. Close that off so you can see the white in there, I think. Let's just zoom that in a little bit. There you go, you can see the white in there beginning to kind of glisten. Quick question there from Harold Golden. Why did you put the sealer in first? Won't the CA glue adhere to the adhere better on raw wood? Harold, that's a very good question, and I put the sealer on because I don't want the glue to absorb too far into the wood. The sealer is going to penetrate it a little bit and just stop that glue sinking too far into the piece. That's the reason why I put it on now. What am I looking for now? Tool rest, there we go. And then, so there's the white in there, and then we're going to get some of the volcanic black, and we'll just pour that in as well. roughly 50-50, or you could make it a little bit less or a little bit more if you want. Give it a little bit of a shake. There we go, that's mixed up. I think I need a little bit more black. That's looking a smidge white for me. It's looking a little bit too pale, so put a little bit more black in. Give it a shake. There we go. That's a little bit better. I like that. Okay, right, let me just reorganize these cameras a minute. Let's just tilt this one back a touch so you can see roughly what I'm doing. There we go. And then that should be good. Right, now I'm going to put a little plastic box under here on the bottom of the lathe so I can catch anything that falls off into it, which there will be. And to start with, I'm going to be using a thin CA glue. There we go. A thin CA glue. Yes, that's right. Yes, that is a brand new product from Hampshire Sheen. Thin CA glue. I'm also doing a medium CA glue and an activator spray as well. Now, to start with, we're going to put just the black and white sand in the middle, in the wider band here. And I'm going to start by just dribbling some thin CA glue in there, being careful not to spill it into either side or even on the lathe, and then sprinkle the sand on. Now it is going to get a little bit messy, granted, and then with that sand there, just put a couple of little drops over the top of that sand, just like that. You probably didn't see that. So I will be doing it again and again and again. There we go. Right, so there's the first bit in there. I'm going to turn the lathe round slowly, put another little bit, a few drops of CA glue in there, grab some more of the sand and very carefully sprinkle it on there. Not too much. And then a couple of little drops. There we go. Okay, that's still a little bit wet. Now I'm not going to worry about the stuff that's falling off either side here, because we're going to be putting some metal powder in there. I just want to adjust the other camera. Oops. Apologies. Just while I rearrange this camera, it's just dropped a touch. There we go. So a little bit more thin CA on there. You could probably do this in a in an epoxy solution if you wanted to. Yeah, you could probably do it in an epoxy solution and sort of meld it all into a paste. Now we're a little way round. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the activator spray, which is quite cool. It's got a little directional nozzle on it. Give it a little shake and just very lightly just go over the bits that we've already done, because now as we start to roll round underneath, I don't want this side, if it's still wet, to drop off the bottom. Put a few more drops of CA there. And then sprinkle that on there, and then it's really odd, it's really peculiar having to do this kind of backwards. This isn't entirely how I would do it normally as far as where my hands are concerned, but I've got to make sure that, you know, I don't cover it, I don't, you know, obscure it from your view. So I'll put a couple more drops in there. And then just dab that over the top. Boop. Now I'm being very careful not to get any of this sand on the actual glue bottle itself, because it could be somewhat troublesome to remove. So I don't want any. I don't want it on the glue bottle. Basically, it's brand new. Oh, I just stuck myself to the bottle. He's fun. I'm being extra careful. Oh, excuse me a second. I haven't completely stuck myself to the bottle, honest. There. Right, couple of drops over the top again. Couple more in there. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, and I dare say some bright spark will leave a note in the comment to say, oh, why didn't you do it like that? This is one way to do it. You know, there's more than one way to skin a cat, as they say. Let's just make sure that we've got all the bits. Oh dear, I've just dropped it in the in one of the adjacent little grooves, which is a little bit frustrating, but never mind. Okay, let's just give that a little squirt with the activator. We're nearly there. There's the end of where we've just done, and here's the beginning. So give that a little squirt. Right, okay, let's keep going. A few more drops there. Come on. Oh! Sorry, I've just squirted CA glue all over the floor. Not particularly clever. Okay, right, excuse me for being quiet during this. It is one of those things that requires a little bit of concentration. What time is it? 8:30. Oh, we've got a little bit of time. And then a little bit more of a spray of the activator. Give it a second to evaporate, and then we can put the last few bits. Oh, let's go to the overhead. There we go. We can put the last few bits in the top, just to join the two sides up. little spray of the activator. Splendid. Right, let's move those bits out the way, and then you can see there in the little tray at the bottom we've got some of the sand that came off. Right, just have a little feel around, make sure that there's nothing there that's still wet. No, I think we're good. Now, advance warning. Whoops. Advance warning. The sands are proper sand. They're not resin based or anything like that. They are proper rock. So if you're going to try and cut this back with a high-speed steel tool, make sure it's an old one, because the pure rock there, natural stone, will destroy your edge, and probably will require you to regrind your tool from the beginning. So I'm going to use a carbide tool to cut this back just a little bit. I don't want to cut it all the way back just yet, because we've still got the metal to put the metal to put in there. So let's go back to the overhead, and I'm going to use the carbide tool, and all I want to do is just take the very top off these bits. So I've got my glasses on, of course, and I'm just going to very carefully just take that back, just ease the tops back. There we are. So I'm just easing the top back just a little bit, and you can see where we've overfilled a touch, and there's a little place there that we haven't filled in quite enough, and the same there as well, and there. So we could do with a little bit more sand in there. Now where was the big there? So I'm going to put a touch more sand in this area here. Matt Gasper, thank you very much indeed. So there we are. We're going to put a touch more glue in there, and then we're going to put the sand in the hole, give it a little pat down, and then just put a couple of little drops over the top, and then give it a little go with the activator or accelerator, depending upon what you want to call it. Now I need to just make sure that accelerator is dry, because we don't really want to be sprayed with glue or anything like that. So just the same as we did before, going to very lightly cut that back until it's ever so slightly proud of the actual wood surface. Just like that. That'll do for now. I'm not going to worry too much, because this is just a demonstration, but it will give you a really good idea of what you can do. Now, I want to get rid of the bits that are in the channels either side, so I'm going to go back to the thin parting tool, or the diamond tip parting tool. Just dig those out. Now, of course, what I could have done is I could have done these channels at a different time, of course, which probably would have been a better idea. There we are. That'll do. That'll do. Right. So we've got black and white in here. So what are we going to put on either side there? And I think I'll stop just there and just take a few more questions. Rex B, carbide tool. It is a 6mm carbide tool. Rex. Martin, how long after you started turning were you happy with your work before you sold it? A good 6 months to a year mark, really. Before I started, trying to sell it properly, at least a year. Gerard, why would you not use medium CA? Gerard, that's a very good question. I'm using the thin CA because it is essentially thinner, so obviously because it's thin CA, but when you pour it on, the surface tension allows it to flow in between each of the grains, whereas with a medium CA I find that it tends to sit across the top rather than actually penetrating into your little pile of dust or sand. But you should be able to see that a little bit clearer when we move on to the metal ones in a minute. James, Wessex Technical, can it be mixed with milliput? There's no reason why it can't be, James. Harold, question, when you level the surface of the sand and the CA, doesn't the tool pull out grains of sand and leave voids? Only really little ones, Harold, and most of the time, so long as you've put enough in. Let me show you the other one. Let me just show you this one, Harold. No, not that camera, this one. Yeah, there we are. So you can see there that so long as it's all in and you've filled it all up nicely, Harold, then you get a nice flush, smooth surface without any voids. Ian, what handle is that on the carbide tool? Ian, that's Simon Hope's old carbide handle tool. I think he's updated it since I got hold of it. Simon Mason, can the sand be sanded? Yes, and I will be showing you that as well in a minute, or when we get there. Right, okay, 20 to 9. I need to get a move on with the metal ones. Right, okay, that's me done with coffee. Now, what am I going to put either side of this? Well, the other good thing about this sand is where you leave it slightly rough to start with. If you've managed to get some CA glue on your fingers, you can actually sand it off on the piece. Mark Pritchard, Martin, do you turn every day? Oh, Mark, I wish I could turn every day. I really don't. I would much rather. I would rather turn every day, but I've obviously got a couple of businesses that I need to run as well. Right, let's get the metal in, shall we? I need to have a think. Because I've got a choice of aluminium, brass, bronze or copper. So I'll leave it up to you. What we're going to put in either side of this black and white here. What we're going to put in: aluminium, brass, copper or bronze. Your choice. And I'm just going to you keep chatting for a second. I'm going to have a cheeky vape while you let me know what you want me to do with it. Aluminium, brass, bronze or copper. Two for copper. Oh, copper's looking very, very popular. Right, okay, it definitely looks like copper's the winner. Right, so copper it is then. I'll do copper, and then in another demo I'll do another. I'll tell you what, because I've got to do the lid as well, so I'm really going to have to get a move on. I'll put bronze or brass in the top, but we'll let it go. Right, so copper. Right, so let's lose that, and we'll come back to the tool rest view. Right, here's the copper, and it comes with a very handy little pouring spout on inside the cap. And I'm going to pull up a chair for this one because let's find that little box. Right, okay. Right, here we go. Right, I'm sitting down now, so I will whiz through this as quickly as I can. I'm going to use the thin CA again, just the same as before, and put a little bit of a dribble in there. And then, now, disclaimer, I haven't actually used this through here. Oh, there we go, so I can just fill that in there like that. Pat that round, and then about why I'm using thin CA and not medium, it's because I don't think you can see it there, but the thin CA actually penetrates the powders better than a medium CA does. So I'll just put a little bit more glue there. Come back round here. Oh, take a little bit of powder out of there. I can smooth that over with my finger a little bit. I've got to do this all awkwardly, whoops, because I don't want to get anything in the way of the camera. Move that round. And there's very, very carefully putting that copper in there. Spread it round a bit with my finger, and then we can dribble a little bit of that CA glue back in. Move it round, do it again. I'm doing this as quickly as I can, so thank you for your patience, because I think probably a slightly shallower trench would have been a better idea for this, but there we go. Spread that out a little bit. Now, if you're asking questions, remember I can't answer them at the moment because I'm not looking at the screen. Turn that around a bit, dribble a little bit in there. That's good. Now what I will do now is I'll just give that a little hit with the activator spray. Boop, boop, boop. Oop. Make sure when you're using CA glue quite as much as this that you've got good ventilation or adequate ventilation. Both my doors here are open this evening and there's a little bit of a breeze coming through. Oops. Yeah, we'll just keep going. Okay, nearly there. Okay. Hit that again with the activator spray. Now I'm not going to worry about cutting that back just at the minute. And then we'll start on this side. Oop. Now, although the I was cutting the stone or the sands back with a carbide tool, you can actually cut the metal powders back with a gouge or a scraper or what have you. It's entirely up to you because they're much softer. These metal powders are much softer than the actual natural stone, so you can use a gouge or a scraper to cut those back. You don't have to use a carbide. Oop, come on. There we go. Let's just change the view for you so it's not quite so tedious. Nearly there. Missed a bit. I'm sure there's a much... Yes, one thing I was going to say, actually, is when it comes to these metal powders, it is easier to mix the powders with a 5-minute epoxy or even a 45-minute epoxy and mix it into a very, very thick paste. But I haven't got any, so this is the alternative. So yeah, you can use a 5 or 45-minute epoxy to what's the word I'm looking for? Right, let me try that sentence again. You can use a 5 or a 45-minute epoxy and mix these powders into a very, very, very thick paste, and then essentially paste them into your void, as it were, and then let it go off, and then cut it back. But the paste, the epoxy paste that you make, has got to be very, very, very thick. Years ago, or a few years ago, when I was messing around with metal inlays and epoxy resins and stuff, if it's not thick enough, what tends to happen is that it doesn't look like metal anymore, or it doesn't become shiny like you would hope or expect it to. So it's got to be a very, very thick epoxy paste. And perhaps when I get some epoxy resin, It doesn't even it doesn't have to be the stuff that the guys used for casting. It can just be a sort of an araldite product. You know, the two-part thing that you get in the little squeezy tubes. Made a right mess of this. Right, just a little bit more, and then we're nearly done. Ooh. Ba, ba, ba. Right, give that a little going over with the activator spray. Now I'm going to have to take quite a lot off of this because I've done this in a little bit of a rush. I haven't been quite as careful as perhaps I should have been. Ba, ba, ba. Put the lid back on the activator. And make sure that there's nothing wet still, because that's quite important. I could do with a little bit more. Could do with a little bit more of the powder in there, which I'm going to do because that'll bug me if I don't. So just a little bit more, just in there. Ooh. This looks proper messy, but you know, we make stuff, we like making a mess. Let's give that a little squirt with the activator. It's really important that the glue is all gone, or it's all set by the time you start turning again, because there is nothing worse than getting your hands and your arms covered with essentially CA glue spittle. So I'm just going to make sure that it's all gone off. Right. Okay, right now the moment of truth. Now remember what I said, there are a few bits here that I would rather have spent a little bit more time on. There's my little disclaimer. And what we need to do is now cut this back to the wood so we can easily see our three little sort of trenches that we've made. So I've got plenty of speed in the lathe, and I am using the carbide tool again. There we go. You can see those. You can see them coming back now. There we go. There. You can see that we've lost a little bit where I didn't put enough glue in. In fact, it still feels a little bit soft. Oh no, it's alright. I am going to just fill that bit up there because that bit's going to bug me. So I'm going to put a little bit more glue in there. And copper powder. I'm not going to spend, as I said a couple of times, I'm not going to spend ages and ages and ages doing this. Oh, come on. Oh, it's quite a lot there. Right, so there's a little bit there, and we'll put a little bit. We'll put a little bit in there as well, because it actually looks like there's a tiny little void under there. Right, I'm not going to do any more because of time. Time is never your friend when it comes to demonstrating. But preparation is, I suppose. I could have been a little more prepared for this demo than I actually was. Right, let's spin that up. Get a little bit more speed going. There we are, that'll do. That certainly gives you a really nice idea of what can be achieved with those sands. So for those of you who said copper, thank you very much. Now we're going to finish turning the bottom of this piece. So I'm going to go back to the bowl gouge to do that. So I've just dropped the height of the tool rest back down. Whoop. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? What time is it? 9 o'clock. Right. And then switch over to a spindle gouge so I can get in the bottom there. This is looking really, really nice. I'm really liking that. Even though we've got a few little gaps in there, I'm sure you'll appreciate time pressures and stuff like that. We'll take a little bit more off. Right, let's get the parting tool. Now I'm not going to part it off completely because I still want to finish this. Okay, right. Mask on.
Right, sorry everybody, I've got to put my mask on so I can do the sanding. Oop. Right, sorry about that. Must have looked like a 3-year-old trying to dress himself. Right, okay. I'm going to sand this all back now. So I'm going to switch on the extractor, find my grits, and I'm going to start with 120 grit. Right, we'll see how the 120 grit works. Remember, we do have these bits of sand in here, so they are super hard. What am I doing? I've got 120 grit down here. At least I did have. That's 180. Where's the 120 gone? Oh, I've run out, that's why. Right, there we go. So let's start sanding this down. Now, because I've parted a lot of this off, I can't put too much pressure on here. And you can see where the sand's beginning to get sanded off. Oh, glasses. I forgot to put my glasses on. There we go. Let's try that. Glasses on. What I'll do just for... I'm just going to stop the lathe and just have a look at the surface. Let's just see what it's like. Yeah, I'm going to go over just this bit here with a little bit of 80 grit, just to help take that little lump down a touch. Just a little bit. That'll do, and then we'll come back to the 120. I haven't got any 120 Abranet, I'm afraid. Otherwise I'd use that, so I'm going down the expensive route of using sanding discs. And because time is ticking on, I'm not sure I'm going to have time to do a lid as well. Right, so that's 120. Then we'll come down to 180 grit. You can see that copper's beginning to shine up nicely. Now I'm not putting too much pressure on here because I've only got that little bit down there that's and you can see where the black and white sand there is beginning to polish up a little bit. It's getting a little bit darker in colour with each grit. So that was 180. This is 240. Let's just have a look at that. So you can see certainly where I rushed it, there's a few little gaps in there. So let's just now go down to 320. And the black and white sand, the dolomite sand and that volcanic sand are beginning to shine up really nicely now, as are the two copper bands. And then we'll just finish that off with some 400 grit. Could have sanded that a bit better. Sanding sealer. Right, I'm going to take my mask off now.
Turn the extractor off as well. Give that a little bit of a buff up. Mary Alice, thank you very much. And then I'll put my usual finish on. Oops. Really wish I'd spent a little bit more time on the copper inlay, but never mind. So there's a little bit of Hampshire Sheen high gloss just to finish it off. Now, unfortunately, I don't have time to do the lid as much as I would want to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to extremely carefully cut the top off, cut the shoulder off, so we will at least have a little finished pot. And just to give the piece a little bit of support whilst I'm doing that, I'm going to slide the tool rest, no, not the tool rest, the live centre into the piece, just down the bottom there. Remember, this is a demo piece. It's not a finished piece. Well, it is sort of a finished piece, but you know what I mean. And just go with a spindle gouge, and what we'll end up with is sort of a Grecian style pot rather than a box. So let's just go to the overhead view. So I've got a spindle gouge, and I'm just going to very carefully cut the top of this back. There we are. Give it a very light sanding. I know I haven't finished the inside of the piece, but you know, I'm not going to worry too much about that. Really light sanding. .100. Little bit of 180, and then we'll just go from 180 straight down to 400. Stop there, and we'll put a little bit of sealer on as well. Let's just tell you a tiny little bit of sanding just in there. There we go, and we can stick a little bit of wax on it as well. Why not? And then I think there'll be time to do one more little bit for you, which is essentially the thank you Buster, thank you Brian. So there'll be one more part to this demo, very brief, and we will do it pretty darn quick, I can tell you, because time is ticking on. Right, give that a little spin up, give that a little buff up. So now we've got essentially sort of a Grecian pot. Slide the tool rest back in there, and we can part it off. Slow the lathe down. Slow it down a little bit. Undercut it a tiny bit. There we go. Move that out of the way a minute. Whoop. And we'll do a long view. I'll just tilt it up like that. And there we are. Whoop, sorry. Oh. And there we are. There's our little pot with the two inlays in it, with the black and white sand and the copper bands. Now, if you've got time, well, I've got about 15 minutes before I need to go into a Zoom meeting. So there's that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the discount code back on the screen for you, just while I finish off, or just while I do what I need to do to show you what I wanted to do with the lid, which I don't have time to do. So I'm going to grab a spindle gouge, just pop that up, clean this off completely. And then grab the diamond tip parting tool, and we'll put some lines in here. Oh, that's gone really blunt. Oh, that's proper hard, that. Right, so we'll put those lines in there. and then switch over to the Woodcut Pro mount. Right, bear with me a minute, sorry folks. Oh, I'll stick that on there. Whoop. Which way does that go? Come on. Excuse me, I'm just arguing with the Pro mount. I haven't used it for a little while. There we are, that'll do. Okay, right. Let's try that again. I'm going to take that code off the screen for a minute, and we'll go back to the overhead. Pop. There we are. Right, you can see that now. We've got these rings. We've got these rings in here. And for those who wanted to see another colour, we'll do aluminium. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the aluminium powder in. No, I'm not. Changed my mind. Going to use brass. Whoops. Brass? Yeah, brass. Why not? Let's do brass. So I'm going to put the brass in there. Oh. You know when you glue the lid of the CA pot to the pot? Ah, there we go, it's got it. Just turn that round a little bit. Oh. That way, there we go. Right, so let's dribble that glue on there. In fact, I may as well just put it. Let's take the lid off. So if you remember what I said earlier, it will be much easier to do this with an epoxy paste. Let's just smooth that all round into the outside lane, as it were. Oops, there we go. A little bit more. Right, and then give that a good dousing with glue. Remember, this is not this is not the best way to do it because I'm rushing. Just going to let that sink in. Ian in the shed, how much powder are you using for the lid compared to what get? As in, are you using just a little bit or half the container? Ian, it depends upon how deep you make the trench, as it were, and how many trenches or places you want to put the where you want to put the powder. They're generally 250 grams each of these, but the bronze one is a denser metal, and that's got 345 grams in it. So if we have a look, I don't know how well you can see this, but both of those were brand new pots this evening, or both of these are brand new pots this evening. So if we just look at, and they both had exactly the same amount in. So that's the brass that we've just used, and there's the copper. So we haven't used a huge amount. These little bottles will go a very long way. Let's just level them up a little bit. A little will go a very long way, particularly if you use a thin or a shallow trench, as it were. Let's give that a little squirt, just with the activator, just to make sure it's gone off. Wayne the Woodturner's back. Hi, Wayne. Right. Lauren, this glue isn't throwing out a huge amounts of fumes. It doesn't smoke very much either. It's good stuff. Rob CP, can you use Yorkshire grit before using intrinsic colours? Rob, I find it very difficult to do that. I know some people do. Wayne the Woodturner might be a good person to ask about that. I'm fairly certain Wayne uses them in conjunction with Yorkshire grit, but I'm not entirely certain how. Right, okay. Now we can tool rest. Oh, come on. Is that going to focus? No. Focus. There we go. Right. Now, so that's the glue. That's the glue done on there. Hopefully, I didn't rush it too much, but I might have done. We'll see. And then I'm going to use a bowl gouge just to cut that back a bit. Let's have a look at that. Oh yeah, that'll do. There's a little bit there that's come out, but I'm not going to panic about that just at the minute. So I'm going to sand that back quickly. We'll start with 120 because this is fairly soft metal. Extractor on. Bring the extractor hood in. Mask on quickly.
Okay, hopefully you can still hear me. So this is a little bit of 120 grit. Slow the lathe down a touch. $120, and then we'll go back to the other grits, the Abranet. A little bit of 180. A little bit of 240. A little bit of 320. And then just to finish it off with a little bit of 400. It's not going to be the best finishing job you've ever seen me do, but it will at least.
Oh, there we go. It will at least give you a vague idea. A little bit of sanding sealer. And give that a little bit of a buff up just to dry it off a bit. And then we'll put some gloss on just to finish it off just a little bit. So with a little bit more care and attention, you'll be able to make a really good job of these metal inlays, and you can see there quite how effective they'll be. Oops. Whoa, come on. There we go. Give that a little buff up. There we are, not exactly the prettiest of pieces this evening, which is slightly disappointing, but you know, let's just take this one out as well. Oh. Long view. Right, there we go. Thank you very much indeed for joining me this evening, folks. Again, apologies that these aren't exactly... The evening didn't go completely according to plan, but we have at least got two fairly presentable pieces that with a little bit more care and attention would be absolutely spectacular. Let's just have another look at those like that. There we are. So that's got the black and white dolomite sand and the volcanic sand with 2 copper bands, and this one here's got brass rings in it. Remember, I did do this pretty quickly, and if you are interested in any of the having a go with any of the products from this evening, then you can get 10% off until midnight tomorrow night. Oops. Douglas, the sand looks like granite. It does a bit look like granite, Douglas. You're absolutely right. That was quite a nice happy accident when I was playing around with various products and stuff. So yeah, there we go. Right, we'll do a couple of minutes of Q&A. So 20 to 10, according to my clock here in the workshop. So we've got 10 minutes. 20 to 10, and then I'm going to head off. So if anybody has any questions, please do ask them now. Right, okay, gentle turn. Question, how can we avoid the dark smear on the wood between sections on your cup? Dark smear, gentle turn? Let me have a look. see what you mean. Oh yes, you just need to sand it properly. That's all that is. That's just not being sanded properly. Oh. Yeah, right, okay. Thanks, Mike. Chisky, are those metal powders available in the USA? Chisky, to be absolutely honest with you, they are standard metal powders down to 200 mesh, and it will be much cheaper for you to find a supplier in the US of those particular powders. But yeah, I can ship them there. Sleeping Dog, when a wax finish, Hampshire Sheen high gloss gets into little voids and can't be polished or buffed, what's the best way to deal with it? Hot air gun, Sleeping Dog. Actually give it a little going over with a hot air gun so that it melts. That's the easiest way to do it. What are you going to call it? Old looking pot thing. Yes, Darren, that's probably a good idea. Douglas, you're welcome. Thank you very much. Paul Kavanagh, how deep do the grooves need to be at a minimum? 2 mil, I'd say, Paul. Something like that. Martin, to fill crack in a piece, do you use coffee grind or instant coffee? Gerard, where I can, I would use coffee grind rather than instant coffee. Matt Held, can you go back and put a second coat in the gaps? Yes, absolutely you can. Could you use these powders as a grain filler? Yes, you could if you wanted to, Ray, but it would be easier to use probably the bronze or the gold embellishing wax. It will be much quicker, cheaper and easier to use an embellishing wax like that as a bit of a sort of a grain filler. Can they be used with any super glue, or could they be added to resin? SK Crafts, Steve, yes, they absolutely can be added to resin, and particularly the metal powders, they do generally work just as well with a very, very, very thick resin paste. Matthew, thank you very much. Cheers, Dave Shorten. Andy Harris, can the sand be used with epoxy instead of CA? No reason why it can't be, Andy. Will these be available in the US? Matt Gasper, yes. Woodworld of Texas will be in receipt of the sand products sometime late next week, I would think. John Dale, you're welcome. Richard, unfortunately the shipping is too much. Yes, I know, it's very expensive. But anybody who's wanting it from overseas, if you ask your nearest stockist to get it in for you, they should place it when they order again next from Hampshire Sheen. Frederick, couldn't you put some black embellishing wax in the gaps in the copper rings? Yes, you could, although they are quite big, so I probably wouldn't. I would rather go back and fill them up properly. Mark the Gentleman Woodturner. Yes, it is a new hat. This is my summer weight hat that I am wearing this evening. Lynn Black, have I tried using crushed turquoise? I can't find it anywhere either, Lynn, but don't despair. I am still looking for it as a product for the Inlay range from Hampshire Sheen. Silk, yes. Coffee grinds. Ian Plews, thank you very much. Fam Hodgkinson, what RPM do you buff high gloss at? As fast as safely possible, really, Fam Hodgkinson, I would suggest. I normally do it somewhere around 1500 to 2000 RPM, but it depends on the size of the piece, how wobbly it is, how wonky it is, or it depends, but as fast as safely possible. Mark, thank you. Right, 3 minutes, and then I'm going to have to shoot off. Ba, 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 ba. Right, three minutes. Rubber dub wood. Has the carpentry store or the woodshed ordered any of the inlays? No, not yet. But I can ship to Ireland quite easily. If you want them, you will need to. If you want them from your local supplier, you will need to ask them to stock them for you. They're under no obligation to order anything, really. Darren, you're welcome. Colin, will gilt creams work well on Euro oak? Yeah, shouldn't be a problem. Gentle Turn Martin. Oh, you're very, very welcome. Will you be having a stand at Makers Central next year? Ian at the shed, probably not. Hobby Turner. Hi guys and gals. Been on a course identifying suicide risks. Oh, Hobby Turner. That sounds a bit. Yeah, sounds like a tough evening for you, but unfortunately we're almost done. Graham Harris, when am I next streaming? I'm not entirely certain, Graham, sorry. It'll be a week or two at least, I should think. Yeah, is Yandel stocking these new products? Fam, they should do, they know about them, but it will be entirely up to them as to when they order them or not. Hobby Turner, can we show the end result? Hang on a minute. There we go. There's Hobby Turner. There's the end result. Not exactly particularly tidy because I did actually have to rush a little bit. And then Glenn Crandall, thank you very much. Mike Dench, if you use accelerator, do the CAs turn white? Mike, I used the accelerator on these, and as you can see, the accelerator didn't turn white. It just sets it, and it goes white on the surface. Tony P, are Yandel still putting orders in? I was there a week or so ago, and there wasn't a lot of HS stuff. Tony, they are still putting in orders, yes. And as soon as they come in, I ship them and they sell the stuff again. So yeah, they are ordering it. They're having a little bit of a shake-up down there. Some things are changing as far as the organisation of staff and stuff is concerned, but it is getting there. Charles Knight, can you mix the brass and copper together? Would it look good? Charles Knight, you can mix them together. Would it look good? I have no idea. Buy a set and try, and then show me what you think. Right, I am going to have to go now, folks, I'm afraid. Thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you all have a good couple of weeks. I think it will be a couple of weeks before I can stream again, and when I do stream again, I will have some very, very, very exciting news for you. Okay, thank you very much indeed, everybody. I look forward to seeing you again soon, and again, thanks very much for watching. And for those of you who are in the Woodturning 360 Club, check on the Facebook group because we are going to be having a Zoom meeting right now. Thanks very much, everybody. Bye for now.